Good evening, everyone. The team at Mind Specialist thanks everyone for being a part of our journey in empowering individuals on mental health. We are thrilled to introduce a new segment for our audience, the new series called Baatein Unfiltered. Baatein Unfiltered aims at reinforcing the power of conversation and dialogues with experts, influencers, renowned names with the power of the digital landscape. With this, I, Shrishti Malik, welcome you all to the first episode of Baatein Unfiltered. Today, we have with us our very first guest, who is a doctor, an entrepreneur, a comedian, and an author at the same time. What's special about him is that he is amazing at all his careers. He'll be sharing different anecdotes from his life with us, and as you listen to him speak, witness the beauty of his varied experiences that won't fail to inspire you, to say the least. We have with us today Dr. Jagdish Chaturvedi, who is an ENT surgeon, medical device innovator, author, and a stand up comedian. Dr. Jagdish is currently the founder and director of High Innovations Private Limited. He is recognized as one of the 35 innovators under the age of 35 by the MIT Technology Review 2016. He is also a stand up comedian popularized by his YouTube channel, Jagdish Chaturvedi. And he's the author of the best selling book on medical device innovations called Inventing Medical Devices, A Perspective from India. Two of his other authored books are The Benefits of Failing Successfully and 1 Year of Stand Up Comedy.
We as Indians, we are scared of only two things. First thing is losing izzat in society. And the second is getting police ki lathi. ये दो चीजें, it makes us do things. And this explains why we wear the mask like this, because it covers both these points. डबल चिन कवर हो गया तो सोसाइटी जज नहीं करेगी, अरे शर्मा जी लॉकडाउन में फैले नहीं. और पुलिस ने भी पकड़ लिया तो सर हम लोग मास्क पहन के बाहर आए हैं, देखो कहां लिखा है कि नोज और माउथ नहीं कवर करना है.
Hello, Dr. Jagdish. Welcome
Hi.
to the show. We are very thrilled and excited to have you with us today and looking forward to an interactive, insightful, and engrossing discussion.
Well, thanks, Srishti. I'm happy to be here too, and thanks for the opportunity. And I look forward to an entertaining and, at the same time, informative conversation.
Yeah. So let's move forward with our very first question from you. And I like to ask, let's talk about the elephant in the room. So as we all know about you, and I've done my research that you were and are an ENT surgeon in the first place, and then you decided up on stand-up comedy. How did stand-up comedy and medical profession meet? What was the intersection like?
Well, there is an interesting intersection, but in my mind, stand-up comedy and the medical practice really has nothing to do with each other. It has more to do with me because I have been doing theater since my childhood, very early till I think sometime around the age of 7. Is where I can, at the
Oh,
farthest memory, remember when I did a first play as a small child. And then I've been involved with the theater groups in my school, and then a lot of other professional theater groups in Bangalore. And Bangalore is known to be one of those cities which inculcates a lot of extracurricular activities right from your school days. And I'm sure all of us have also in our school days been a part of theater clubs or dance clubs, or your chess club or whatever. Some of the other extracurriculars has always been a part of our integral system, and we still manage to do our studies and maintain other responsibilities fairly smoothly. But something happens around our board exams, right, where this mindset of agar ek cheez karna hai to wohi karna hai, dhang se karna hai, or kuch karte ho, that's distraction, right? So then somewhere around 10th and around the 12th, people stop doing their other extracurricular activities, which they were probably very good at as well. But when I tried to do that under the same pressure, I noticed that my performance, both as a person and in my studies, deteriorated. It did not help. For me, I think theater is not a distraction. For me, I think theater was a stabilizing activity. It helps me channelize. It helps me feel good. I feel I'm creative. I feel I'm contributing, and then that enhances my other efforts into studies and all of that. And I realized that Luckily, my father's a psychiatrist. He grew up in a mental hospital, not in the hospital, but in the campus, a mental hospital
Yeah.
campus. So, having someone from that background understood that, this is an important element for me. So I was allowed to, nurture and grow that. And I think that's a very important aspect of my life, that I continued to do theater and dramatics all the way through my medical college, through my post graduation in ENT, even after that into clinical practice. And I think from 2013 onwards, which is almost 20-25 years plus of doing theater seamlessly, started to struggle once I started doing a lot of these innovation activities, startups, and started moving into private practice, and plus the Bangalore traffic. I think these three things make it very difficult for someone to show up for rehearsals on time. And rehearsals are a very important aspect of theater, and missing rehearsals is considered as very disrespectful for your team, and everyone who shows up on time. And these rehearsal commitments are almost like a relationship. You almost have to commit for a month and a half sometimes, and it's great. That's what makes it great, because you bond with people, you get into the character and all of that. But for me, my clinical routine was so unpredictable that I became labeled as that guy who would never show up for rehearsals, who would come up at the end and steal the show. And that was not a good reputation to have. I was softly banned from the theater circuit as well, and not many production houses would agree to work with me, because it puts them in a tough situation, that my reasons are related to people's health, so they can't really enforce or push it. But at the same time, I really wanted to try to make it happen. And even though everyone else, my family, myself, we were all ready to do it, I couldn't just make myself available. And it was looking like a struggling affair. And then one fine day, I was actually I moved to direction. I started directing some plays, but then I realized a director has to come before other people for rehearsals, and there was a bigger commitment to come for rehearsals. And I was actually directing a stand-up comedian. Her name is Sneha Suhas. She's a Bangalore-based stand-up comedian, for a small play. And I wouldn't show up on time or all of that. And she's like, "Why are you, trying to do this? Why don't you just move to stand-up comedy? It's just, you're on stage, you have an audience, you have a lot of theater background. It's a new art form which I guess you can pick up, but you should definitely try it out." And that was a time when I thought, okay, I should try stand up comedy. And I was trying lots of other things to fit an alternative to theater. I was trying improv, I was trying miming, I was trying mimicry, I was trying poetry, I was trying a lot of things, so that I have that one art form in my life. And when I tried stand up comedy, unlike others which did not work very well, uh, stand-up comedy worked very well for me, because my initial response to my show was also very good. Some of the videos that I put out were did very well, and I automatically started getting a lot of requests for more shows from companies, medical conferences, and all of these things. And that's how I got pulled into comedy, and I had to say goodbye to theater. And so I would say stand-up comedy is a compromise, and it's more of my requirement to do something creative, which I've always been doing since my father's memory. And I cannot see myself being, I would say, happy or mentally stable if I do not have something like this. But I do try a lot of things, but stand up comedy is one out of many things that I tried which clicked for me. So that's how it came about.
With this, I would also like to ask you another question. When you ventured into something as unconventional as stand up comedy, what was the reaction of people around you? Not just family, but your friends and people you meet in general.
Yeah, so I think I had different responses from different groups of people. My family was a little on the happier side, especially my wife, who now knew I would be more available. Because for stand-up comedy, though rehearsal requirement is just as much as theater, but the dependency of rehearsing with other group of people is eliminated, because stand-up comedy is a solo performance. You write and you practice on your own in your own time, and that could be like for me in traffic or during a flight or even at the toilet, right? But from my friends were also okay with it. Though my colleagues at work, they did, show some concerns, saying that, you represent a very noble profession of being a doctor, you're a surgeon, and, you think about it, theater is fine. A lot of doctors do theater, and theater has that element of elegance to it. But stand-up
Yeah.
comedy is a bit crass because different people do very different type of comedy. Many people believe comedies, for some people comedy is just abuses, for some people comedy is something else, for some people comedy is very slapstick humor. So stand up comedy is a very broad term. So I remember one of my friends, my colleague, who told me this specific line is, Jagdish, tu soch, joker ke paas patient kyun aayega? And that was a hard hitting line, and I think I remember that. But I am very experimental in life. I don't take somebody's advice without testing it. And I said, okay, that's a valid point, because I never thought of it transitioning from theater to comedy, and then what will my image as a doctor be? But I thought, let me try it, and if it really affects my practice, patients stop coming, or it really affects my dynamics with the patients, I will reconsider and look at something that works. But when I started continuing that, I realized that just the opposite was happening. I saw more patients, a patient inflow going up by 3 or 4 times, and my interaction with
Wow.
patients being a lot more healthier, in fact. The profile of patients that were coming were also of the mindset that is more suitable for medical practice and surgeons. I stopped getting the khadoos patients. I stopped getting the patients with black and white thinking. I started getting patients more open-minded, more acceptable, to treatment methodologies. And one interesting thing that used to happen a lot is, after every comedy performance on stage, after the show, a group of people would line up, and I was like, oh my god, I'm becoming famous. लोग सेल्फी लेने आ रहे हैं, देख जगदीश कितना. थिएटर में तो कभी नाम नहीं होता है, थिएटर में थिएटर ग्रुप का नाम होता है. इधर सी 5 6 shows, 10 shows, and look, people are lining up. And then people used to line up, and then they used to come and then take out their CT scan and say, sir, हमारा नाक बंद है, ये इधर सर में दर्द है, कान में रिंगिंग साउंड आ रहा है, थ्रोट में थोड़ा सा किचकिच हो रहा है. And all of them almost had some of the other clinical symptoms. And I was like, yeah, you guys have come to take consultation at the end of my show. And they were like, yes, sir. Actually, to be very honest, आपका फोर्टिस में कंसल्टेशन 1000 रुपये है, इधर 250 रुपीज में कवर चार्ज में 2 ग्लास दारू भी मिलता है, और फिर आपके साथ कंसल्टेशन भी कर सकते हैं. So the typical mindset of getting things done, right?
So true.
So I started seeing a lot of patients after my shows, which would convert into surgeries, and a lot of other way around would also happen. People who were my patients started coming up to my shows, and when people who used to come up in my OPDs, I used to ask them, आप जोकर के पास क्यों आए हो? इतने सारे ENT doctors, and they're far more serious or more focused in their careers. And though most people laughed it out, a few actually sat down and told me the answer. And the consistent answer that I get is that, sir, the corporate doctor's profile created by media is so evil. It's like, you got two horns, and
Yeah.
hospital admit करा देंगे, दवाई दे देंगे, surgery करा देंगे, लूट लेंगे. But when we see you do comedy, you can only relate to someone's comedy because it's relatable. That's how the word relating to comedy comes. And once you relate to someone's comedy, you are connecting at a human level. And they felt that, we connected with you, we connected with your humor, we are connected with your mindset, and we didn't feel that you would be someone who would, try to take an advantage of us. And I think that was a very interesting insight, which was not very clear to me in the beginning. But I realized that, if people connect to a doctor or anybody in any profession beforehand, the building of trust is a little stronger, and the ability to listen and follow up on instructions, or the treatment is more. And that's why I started finding patients a little more open minded, like they accept this doctor has a hobby, this doctor also has a dual life, and we like both. And this is the kind of person we need. And many times people come to me saying that, you're an inventor, can you please figure out a way to treat me in a much better way than other people? Initially, I would think that,
Yeah.
why would somebody want a doctor to be experimenting on patients? But patients are open to newer techniques, newer treatment. And I think what this did most importantly for me is, it filtered out the khadoos population, the
Yeah.
khadoos population who have this black and white mindset. अगर तो डॉक्टर है तो डॉक्टरी ही करनी है, अरे जो कॉमेडी कर रहा है तो is not a good doctor. I am better off not seeing those guys, because they would anyway not comply to my treatment philosophies. I'm an innovator. I use a lot of new technologies. I use a lot of newer ways of treating. So I think the medical chiasma that happened with comedy, I think, was very positive. And now the friends who used to say जोकर के पास कौन आएगा, अभी मेरे को shows दिलाते हैं अपने conferences में. So I think there is a period of where people accept, and they also learn from the society that, okay, this is also something that is acceptable.
Yeah. I think this is the society that teaches us to be accepting or non-accepting. And from people like you who have two separate, who work in two individual careers or maybe more than two careers, it's very great of you to be experimenting and letting people know. तो मुझे लगता है कि मैं ज़रूर ऐसे डॉक्टर के पास जाना चाहूँगी अगर मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम होगी, या फिर किसी को ज़रूर सलाह देना चाहूँगी कि आप ऐसे डॉक्टर के पास जाएँ और आप शायद उन्हें 2-3 जोक भी सुना दें ₹1000 कवर चार्ज में।
Definitely.
So yeah, thank you again for sharing this one. With this, I'd like to because now we have established that you, as a medical professional, and also as a stand-up comedian, and how you were an entrepreneur, are an entrepreneur, and you're still working on other different things, writing more books probably. So now that we know that how something unconventional is not so unconventional for you. It is something like you like, and that's how it is. जैसा दिल करता है वैसा आप करते हैं, I guess. So I'd like to ask you another question. How will you define the relationship between your comedy or general comedy and humor and mental health? Whether being a stand-up comedian yourself has put any pressures on you, like, so you talked about it in the first question that we asked you. You answered it when you were talking about your journey from, how you switch from so many careers and you still work all of them so well together. So pressures come on you. तो आप कुछ हमें बताना चाहेंगे कि ये बहुत सारी रिसर्चेस हो चुकी हैं कि कॉमेडी और ह्यूमर और मजाक और कुछ इन सब चीज़ों का जो है वो मेंटल हेल्थ, मानसिक स्वास्थ्य से कुछ ना कुछ रिलेशन होता है। आपके हिसाब से वो क्या रिलेशन है, हम जानना चाहेंगे?
Yeah, there is a very strong relation basically. जैसे अगर जब मैं थिएटर भी करता था, आई मीन जो ये मैं थिएटर या कॉमेडी या बीन पार्ट ऑफ रॉक बैंड, जो कुछ भी मैंने एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर्स किए हैं, दे आर स्लाइटली सेल्फिशली मोर बिकॉज ऑफ माय रिक्वायरमेंट, एंड सेकेंडली इट इज ऑल्सो बिकॉज पीपल एंजॉय इट टू सम एक्सटेंट. बट थिएटर में मुझे क्या, व्हाट आई यूज्ड टू लाइक mentally, which used to heal, is it used to exercise empathy, because if you're going to play another character, you're going to act like someone else, you have to follow the exercise of empathizing with that character's feelings, कि whether it's male or female or whether it's a different profession. And for me, I used to find that so exhilarating, because I could live for a brief moment like someone else and play that character on stage, interact with people who would recognize me as that character. अभी मैं बाहर जाके कोई और कैरेक्टर बन जाऊंगा तो मुझे पैरानॉइड स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया करके अंदर कर देंगे, बट स्टेज पे people will recognize me as a different character, and I get to interact with, okay, so I have somebody else is playing my wife, or somebody else is playing a policeman who's trying to chase me, whatever it is, but I'm able to empathize with the situation. I'm able to empathize with the character, and I think empathy is very important for a doctor. and
Yeah.
and and somehow it gets ingrained that when a patient is telling his history or her history and their things, the empathy exercise, if done over a period of time, comes naturally, and you start understanding what you need to say, how you need to say it, what do you need to rephrase. And in some way that compassion shows out, which is very important in medical practice, which sometimes becomes very mechanical when patients become subjects in cases and you just have to see 100 in 4 hours, right? So it becomes difficult. So I think that is one thing that I was very attracted to theater. But with comedy, and I have done both serious and comedy plays, but largely comedy, and I've also written comedy. I find comedy is a very strong and positive outlet to stress and negative thoughts. We all face some of the other things. I've had a quarrel on traffic junctions with numerous people, and I've had my own shares of failures. And but when you convert them into humor, just that writing and looking at your own negative situation in the light of comedy and ridicule, I think is extremely healing, because then you don't feel bad about it and you feel that you got an advantage out of it by making other people laugh. And I think in coping mechanisms, humor is considered as one of the positive coping mechanisms as well. Where you channelize your negative energy into something positive. And stand-up comedy allows a little bit more of that, because you can rant. Like comedy, you can rant, you can roast, you can be a character, and you can replay it, And if you look at my comedy, you can see the lot I do about traffic. There's a lot I do about relationships.
Yeah.
And I have an entire hour of show on failures. It's called F for Failures, which I did for school children and above. But they were all about mistakes and failures and how they translated into funny situations. And then I brought that out. So I think personally that helps me be a more acceptable person, because I am a person who has had anger issues. I have had fights with people since my childhood, get physically angry very soon. But theater and comedy has made me a lot more acceptable person, and I don't remember for I think over a decade or two that I've ever physically fought with anyone. Though I do get angry, but when I get angry, I sit and write them down into jokes or write them down into something else, and I take it out in front of an audience, and then they laugh, and it makes me feel good that I made use of something that I felt bad about. And I think personally for me, these are the ways that it has helped me be not only mentally stable, but I probably a more acceptable social person through comedy and theater.
Yeah, I understand how liberating it can be when you play someone else's role, because theater allows that, and stand-up comedy allows that. If I want to, even for children, when you are in a fancy dress competition, जब बचपन में आप fancy dress बन के जाते थे, you would like to become, आप वही बनना चाहते थे जो जो
Yeah.
जिससे आप inspired होते थे. I
Yeah.
remember I became Sarojini Naidu ji one time.
Okay.
So yeah. So we can see that theater is your first love and comedy comes like second. Or are they at par?
No, if I were to get a chance to act again, and that's why these web series have come into picture, and some of these comedy sketches that I do, because shooting for a movie or a short film or a short episode is technically a little different from theater in terms of rehearsals, where you can block X number of hours in a week and you can complete it. Like it's a 10-day shoot schedule or a 20-day shoot schedule, you are done with it and you're finishing scenes on the go. The only issue that I find a little challenging in acting in front of a camera is that the continuity is not there. In theater, everything is prospective and it's in continuous, and you grow with the character. Here you may have to take one scene somewhere in the middle and then again redo it in 5 angles, and then again play some character in the beginning of that same story, then be different. I think it's more challenging because you have to play that character in discontinuity and played numerous times. Versus theater, once you are on, the light is on in your front of the audience, there are no retakes, and you're going continuously with the story, you're building with the character, it goes to a high and you end the play. So that allows, I think, a little more emotional connect. But I would say that doing stand up comedy and then doing some sort of web series or short movies helps me balance my thirst for both acting and comedy.
Wow, wonderful. That's good. So now that we know that, we were talking about your theater and love for theater, and, now you're doing stand up comedy as a career, you also do other things. How has your experience been trying to saddle various aspects of your life, of your career? So I just want to ask that आप इतने सारे करियर कर रहे हो एक साथ, वो कैसे बैलेंस कर लेते हो? हमारी ऑडियंस आई थिंक बहुत ही ज़्यादा इस चीज़ को जानना चाहेगी कि एट सो यंग ऑफ एज यू आर having 4 different careers. How are you doing managing all of them?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of people ask me that. But see, for me, I am not doing 4 different careers. For me, I am the same Jagdish who used to be since school days. And I'm sure everybody is doing 4 or 5 different careers, but it is not projected in that manner. I feel multitasking is a perception, and everybody multitasks because in your 24-hour day schedule, I'm sure you're only working 8 hours. बाकी समय आप कुछ ना कुछ तो कर रहे हो. वो जो
True.
कुछ ना कुछ आप कर रहे हो रोज, अगर वही रेवेन्यू जनरेटिंग हो जाता है, वही ब्रांडिंग हो जाती है, तो वो सेम चीज मल्टीटास्किंग हो जाती है. लाइक आई गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. Let's say there's somebody's average day, you get up in the morning and you brush your teeth for, let's say, 10-20 minutes, and maybe somebody who loves to brush their teeth a lot, brushes it and then goes to the gym or a yoga session in the morning, and then afterwards you come and you make breakfast and you make the breakfast for your family, and then you go to work, and that's what you're recognized as. That's your profession, is your 9 to 5 job. And then when you come back, you play some sports with your friends or your kids or something like that. Then you watch TV, you like binge watching Netflix, and then you sleep. Now this is probably many people's routine, but let me
Yeah.
let me let me just take this one step ahead and say that if you want to professionalize each of these activities by doing maybe 20% extra work. That when you are brushing your teeth, you also start blogging about good techniques of teeth brushing, good techniques of gum hygiene. You suddenly become a cosmetologist or a blogger about dental hygiene, right? Because that's what you put out on your YouTube channels, that's what people read and they come to you. And then let's say while you're doing yoga or you're doing gym training, and suppose you become a trainer or you become someone who online coaches somebody with yoga, you're still doing that 1 hour of yoga or exercise, but now you are called as a trainer, you're called as someone who's propagating yoga. So suddenly already before your work started, you're a cosmetic blogger, a dental blogger, and you're already a yoga therapist. But for you, your day has not really changed. This is what you were doing anyway, right? And then when you go to work, you when you're making breakfast, let's say you, instead of making it for your family, you figure out a tiffin system that you give to your entire society, and suddenly you become a food caterer provider as well. And then you go to work, and when you come back, you play sports at a little professional level, then you're a sports person. And then when you're watching your Netflix, if you start reviewing it by taking another additional effort and putting out your reviews, you are now a movie reviewer. And then you sleep, and then people will be like, ha, ye to ये डेंटल ब्लॉगर भी है, ये तो योगा थेरेपिस्ट भी है, ये तो टिफिन का फूड सर्विस भी चलाते हैं, फिर ये स्पोर्ट्स भी खेलते हो, वो मूवी रिव्यू भी करते हैं. Just like how you're telling about me, I'm doing this, but for me, this is my natural routine since ever since I can. I do a play and some rehearsal or some comedy is always there as a part of my day. If I'm doing some innovations, that's about 8 or 10 hours of my week, and that's happening whether regardless you call me an innovator or not. I've always been tinkering with things. So I think multitasking is a perception, and that perception comes when you start projecting yourself as a professional in that domain. But in terms of your effort and time, it's not too different. It is just a little bit of consistency. There is obviously another small amount of effort to make it look professional, but you're not doing anything different from what you were doing. So it's not like I'm any different from what I used to be. But yes, I have a team for each of these things that helps me be myself while I'm conducting other things. But I think multitasking is a perception, to answer your question.
Okay, the very well answered that question, because I was about to ask, when people say passion shouldn't turn into career, it should stay as a hobby. So, what's your take and say on this stereotypical thinking?
Stereotypical thinking comes from a time where it was physically very difficult to do multiple things. Right now, I think we are so connected virtually, and I think this is probably easy to do now because of social media, because of internet, and because of your access. But for example, if I have to do the same things at a time when there was no internet, it would be so difficult to coordinate just my role of being a comedian and a doctor and doing innovations and writing a book. If I had to physically go to every office, be there physically present, that makes it very difficult. Now when you have internet, you have social media, we are not even in the same city, you and I, and we're having this interview. I am still sitting at home, and it becomes so much easier to reach out and project yourself as different things. I could be sitting at home, take a video of something, put it on my YouTube channel, start propagating it, and then people watch it, and they have that branding. If I had to do this when there was no time of internet, how would you get people to know that you're doing so many things? You can't afford newspaper ads, or you can't always get coverages at all periods of times. You can't be putting pamphlets and banners. So I think people who advocate this unilateral thinking, they come from a time where doing multiple things was technically very difficult and challenging. But today it is not so difficult and challenging. Today, and it is automatically happening. If you look at YouTube being such a big volume of users putting up their makeup tips, somebody putting up their cooking art, some people putting their painting, like you put how to anything, and you will find it on YouTube. And whoever these people are not doing that full time, right? They're just doing that wherever they do. Like if they go for a holiday, they blog it. So, and when that becomes a little more consistent, you start becoming branded as doing multiple things. So I think it's a little more easier today, to answer your question, and that's why it's a little more possible. And those who are accepting advice from a different time and applying it today, I think are not using their I would say sensitivities to present technologies in adapting to those things.
Yeah, I completely agree with whatever you said, that, times have changed and so does technology. Um, so when we say that technology is changed, it has made us more empowered, or now for the better word, co-powered with each other, and, with different different careers that we want to choose, different options that we want to choose in our life, because we are so sure that your story can definitely educate and inspire a lot of parents to understand their child's valid interests. What are you thinking that when we talk about uh, a child coming up with, telling their parents that they want to do something else right now, and because they want him to study, he or she is studying, but alongside, because of technology now, they can do a lot of other things. What do you think should be your message to them?
Yeah, so this is something that I practice a lot, and I practice this and preach it to my kids as well. And I recommend other parents also to do this: is to encourage two things. One is to encourage trying something and being okay if it doesn't work, because this process of trying, evaluating, and then failing, and then and improving is a very important cycle of knowing yourself and also knowing your abilities. And I think one of the reasons why there's so many people burnt out and under stress is because they have not really understood themselves, what they are able to cope with, what they're not able to cope with, what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And there are a lot of people who have just taken huge decisions of their career without understanding themselves. But early on in your age, or any, even if it's now, you have, if you can start getting into the practice of trying something, you try it and not everything will work, but you need to be okay with that not everything will work, and you will know that only when you try it many times, and then you will know what your working score is. Like for example, there are a lot of things that I have tried which nobody talks about, and that's probably because I never made it significantly in those things. I was in a rock band for almost 8 years. I got kicked out of multiple bands. I was really bad at singing. I was a part of a victims of mad cow disease band, and they didn't want me to sing there, so I was out of that. And then I tried to become a rhythm guitarist. I was not very good at guitaring, so I got out of guitaring. Then I tried to play the bass guitar. Then people didn't know what I was doing. Then I got out of that. Then I played the drums for some time. I actually did a course on drumming, but that didn't take it too far because I didn't have that good motor coordination to grow in that. I tried playing a lot of sports. I played cricket unto state level, but my teams always would lose. I used to play table tennis for quite a bit, to I think significantly good tournament levels, but I didn't really do well. Then I moved into bodybuilding. I wanted to build my body and look strong during my youth, and I overbuilt my body, and then I had a disc prolapse, my L5S1, and then afterwards I couldn't. I was actually bedridden for many months, and then trying other things. Even now, I'm trying the ukulele. I play the cajon, which is a new kind of drumming thing. So I constantly try, and I'm absolutely okay with failing because I know that it is a way to learn about myself. So I can now tell that I'm good at so many things and not good at so many things only because I've tried and I've evaluated. And there's some where there is scope for improvement, which I've continued forward. There are some where there are no scope for improvement, but I knew where to end that dream of that likelihood. And sometimes when you know you cannot do something, you make terms with it and you said, okay, chalo kuch aur try karte hain. So, but there is so much of stigma to failing, and there is so much of associated branding with failing that I think many people stop themselves from trying. And when they stop themselves for trying, they are not setting themselves up to know themselves. They don't know what is the path of failure. They don't know how to recover from mistakes. Then they fail to cope when the time comes, and then they either get take alcohol dependence or drug dependence, or if they're that kind of a personality, or they may hurt themselves or hurt others, or they may cope in unhealthy manners because their coping mechanisms are still like a child, because then they avoided it until their adulthood. But someone like me who's failed every class test, who's failed my medical school exams also, and failures have always been acceptable in my family, and I've always understood that that's a way to improve. And I mean, I've written a book on failures. I did really well. I do a stand-up comedy show on failures. Failures makes a lot of money because other people want to know about other people's failures, and they feel good automatically about themselves. But there's no competition in failures because who wants to be called a failure, right? But
Correct.
there is a lot of benefit to it, and every mistake that you make has a benefit to it. And I think trying and accepting failures as a journey is would be the message that I would give, that every child should be encouraged to try.
Perfect. I also agree. Try till you succeed, but even if you fail, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about empathy in the first half and the first question we were talking about. So I'd like to ask, how has mental health been a part of your life? Have you been touched by mental health issues in your life?
Yeah, so my father's a psychiatrist, and I grew up at Nemans.
Which
All my colleagues and friends were either kids of psychiatrists or psychiatrists themselves or psychologists. So mental health has always been a part of discussion. Sometime I coming home and my father sharing some incident about how this was a patient and that was a patient, and he wouldn't disclose the names for patient confidentiality, but at least he would share, some interesting stories that would open light. And I've myself been very bad at mathematics, but always interested in biology and science. And somewhere I've always been concerned about my own health, and I am not comfortable with anybody else handling my health. So I felt being a doctor gives me dual benefit, is एक तो खुद को भी treat कर लेंगे, family को भी treat कर लेंगे और दूसरों को तो treat कर ही लेंगे. So that kind of thing is the reason why I was more inclined towards medicine, and then having a parent who's in medicine helps. So I think and a lot of my upbringing has had a lot of there's been a lot of mental exercises that have been applied to me, such as timeout, and or I was given a point system. Every time I did something good, I was given a point, and if I did something bad, points were cancelled. So I was obviously experimented a lot with many mental health things. So I model on those, right? I mean, I've not had an abusive parenting or those kind of things, and they've been fairly scientific. And I think that reflects because you model on what you see. A lot of that subconsciously does help in the mental health issues that I've faced with. And plus, before I did ENT, I was also confused whether I should do psychiatry or not. And then my father also believes in trying, and he's like, "Why don't you try psychiatry for some time?" And I did a non-PG junior residence stint at NIMHANS. I was at criminal psychiatry posting for about 3 months, and then with OCD for 3 more months. And NIMHANS gives you a very high volume of cases and a lot of very good discussions and teaching. So I think that gave me a very good spectrum of understanding mental health, as firsthand, talking to murderers, talking to rapists, talking to very complex, situations, handling those cases of patient violence. Chairs have been flung on me, all those kind of things. But how do you deal with those situations, and how do you deal with anxiety, depression? I think generally in our medical curriculum, everyone should be exposed to good quality psychiatric teaching. Unfortunately, it's either a 15-day elective posting and very little training that is given in our curriculum. But I think 6 months, even though I moved into ENT, a lot of that learning helps in understanding patients, where sometimes they're very excessively reassurance seeking, and you know how to not give them too much of gain, as you say, or also understanding that this is not something which is ENT and probably psychosomatic, and they need other kind of care, and then to counsel them accordingly for it. So I think the so mental health has been an integral part. And my wife is a psychiatrist
wow.
herself. Yeah, so she trained at NIMANS also. So I think there's been pretty sound mental health discussions, that we have.
Yeah.
I think that's my relationship with mental health.
So, as we all know, NIMHANS is the neck of mental health, and you've been living in that surrounding, and also your wife now is a graduate from NIMHANS, as you mentioned. So, I'd like to ask one small question similar to this one. Do you think your closeness to the subject from your childhood makes you a more empathetic person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is not more closeness to the subject. I think it is just good mental health knowledge in your family and in your surroundings allows you to grow to whom you want to be. If I'm a little eccentric, I'm a little experimental, it's got me into fair share of troubles as well. But we are talking about the ones that did well. So we are talking about theater, and we're talking about those things. But it has given me the bandwidth to try out multiple things. So I have grown to what I would have liked to be anyway. So there's no regrets. There's anything that I couldn't do, I know why I couldn't do it. It's not that I should have tried that. Yeah, maybe I would have been a very good singer. I know for sure 10 years of bad singing, you understand you're not a good singer. But at least I got to evaluate and come to terms with it. And I think this helps you to be yourself, is what I would say. And if I was a very what do you say, a shy person or a person who would like to be a book reader. Like if I were to say, my sister is nothing like me, even though we have had the same parenting, but she's grown in her own interests, probably into reading or probably into something else, that she likes to do. So I think good mental health education in the family, and I would say healthy mental health practices allows you to be who you want to be. uh, and I think that so that is where it has helped me.
It is given that mental health should be a part of school systems. Coming from a medical background yourself, what are your thoughts on the future of mental health scenario in India?
I think the future of mental health has at least reached to a point where people now discuss their own mental health problems without much stigma. Now, I've seen a phase where, everything was bracketed under the word mental. If you're sad, you're mental, you're crazy. If you're anxious, you're crazy. I think that to a large extent, with our social media discussions and Twitter trolling and brawls, and also some influencers bringing, the topic of depression and anxiety, people begin to see that mental health is not just going crazy, or or being mental, right? People understand that being
Right.
low mood and sad is depression, being overworked is anxious. A lot of media and movies and web series and TV serials have brought OCD in the light. Like The Monk is a detective series where somebody has OCD. The lead actor has OCD, and a lot of these things are integrated in a lot of the movies that we see, and a lot of the TV series also that we see. Even House MD shows a lot of abuse, drug abuse, and dependence. And I think generally that has in society largely given us that first step of being open to discussing. Now, are we discussing in the right direction? I don't think so, but that's how discussions start. Now if you see every time, like there has been a suicide, or celebrity ends their life, and then suddenly people are like, talk to me, I'm always available, but they never usually are. And they don't see the difference between an adjustment disorder versus a depression, or a complicated grief. And there's so many other elements to
True, true.
low mood, bipolar, and all of these things. But people are warming up to that. I had, when there was recently a stand-up comedian ended her life, comedians reached out to me saying, can you take a session and talk to us about how as a comedian should we deal with early signs of depression, or what help can we take, or suicidality. Even though I'm not from the field, but they felt they should reach out to a doctor in the community who understands both being a comedian and all of that. Then I did a 1 hour webinar, which was attended by a good number of comedians, people from art forms. So I think there is that awareness, which is good, and I think that's a very positive sign that maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, this would be very well integrated even in our school education systems. And people would be able to talk about anxiety, people would be able to talk about body image issues much early on. Maybe teachers and schools will be warmed up to that. And I think that is all going to create a much healthier mental health environment, though there's always a small element that will abuse that. But that's also a part of the antisocial elements which are there, and they have their own ways of coping and planning. Because I've heard people who are just had one crying spell and saying, I'm battling from depression, and they use that as an exercise. And I think that's there with everything, and I think that's just a part of how an ecosystem grows. But I'm happy to say that there is steep progress in the as mental health as a topic of discussion over the last few years.
Okay. So you've been talking about, how things in society are there. So I agree with what when you mentioned that, there are going to be users, misuses, but we have to focus on the users more because that's how an ecosystem grows. And I completely agree with it. So with that, I'd like to ask you the question that there are millions or more than that in number who still live with shame, with the stereotype attached, unaware, struggling because of lack of awareness and talk. What do you want to let the world know about the silence and invisibility of the society towards mental health? Like you talked about that, it's good that we are having awareness now. आप बार बार कह रहे हैं कि अवेयरनेस है, बढ़ रहा है, टेक्नोलॉजी है, सब चल रहा है, लेकिन बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे हैं जो आज भी उस स्टीरियोटाइप की छतरी के नीचे जी रहे हैं कि हम किसी को ना बताएं कि हमें एक साइकाइट्रिस्ट के पास जाना पड़ा है, हमें साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास जाना पड़ा है, घर के किसी बाहर वाले व्यक्ति को घर की समस्या या अपनी कोई पर्सनल दिमागी समस्या के बारे में बात करनी पड़ी है। So what is your message to them? आप उन्हें क्या मैसेज देना चाहेंगे?
नहीं, मैं तो ये कहना चाहूँगा कि सबसे पहले स्टार्ट होता है बाय अंडरस्टैंडिंग वेदर यू फील दैट थिंग्स आर नॉर्मल और abnormal. एंड जनरली इवन इन साइकेट्री हम लोग अपनी बायोलॉजिकल, सोशल और ऑक्यूपेशनल फंक्शनिंग को एक मार्कर की तरह रखते हैं। तो अगर आप किसी चीज़ से चिंतित हैं या अगर आपको कोई चीज़ मेंटली डिस्टर्ब करती है बट आप खा-पी ठीक से सकते हैं, आपका काम इफ़ेक्ट नहीं हो रहा अधिकतर और आपकी सोशल लाइफ़ इफ़ेक्ट नहीं हो रही है, देन मे बी आप अपने आप उसको मैनेज कर सकते हैं या अपने दोस्तों के साथ या फैमिली के साथ डिस्कस करके आप उसको थोड़े हद तक मैनेज कर सकते हैं। बट अगर आपकी स्लीप, आपका फूड हैबिट्स और आपके रहन-सहन और आपका काम और आपकी सोशल लाइफ अगर इफ़ेक्ट हो रही है, इवन इफ इट्स फॉर अ फ्यू डेज़, आपको बिल्कुल अपने क्लोज़ रिलेटिव से डिस्कस करके हेल्प सीक करनी चाहिए। और एंड अगर आपको लगता है कि लेबलिंग एज साइकेट्रिस्ट और लेबलिंग एज मेंटल हॉस्पिटल से बहुत स्टिग्मा होता है, तो आप एक पहले किसी भी डॉक्टर को भी आप दिखा सकते हैं। वो इंटरनली हर डॉक्टर अंडरस्टैंड्स सम एस्पेक्ट ऑफ साइकेट्री एंड दे विल बी एबल टू इंटरनली रेफर यू टू अ थेरेपिस्ट और अनदर कोलीग, ताकि ये सीमिंगली थोड़ा नेचुरल लगे। बट अदरवाइज बट डेफिनेटली सीक हेल्प इज व्हाट आई वुड से, रादर देन आप अपने आप उसको हैंडल करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। और अगर आपका काम और आपका रहन-सहन और आपका सोशल लाइफ अगर इफ़ेक्ट हो रहा है तो। बट आई थिंक उसमें ये जो स्टिग्मा है वो आई थिंक विद द reach of internet through networks like Jio and all of this, आप अपने घर बैठे-बैठे ही विदाउट गोइंग आउट काफ़ी थेरेपिस्ट और काफ़ी डॉक्टर्स के ओपिनियंस आप ऑनलाइन ले सकते हैं। टेलीमेडिसिन व्हिच हैज़ ऑलवेज बीन ग्रैपलिंग बिटवीन लीगैलिटी एंड इल्लीगैलिटी, अभी कोविड-19 पैंडेमिक की वजह से काफ़ी एक्सेप्टेबल मॉडलिटी ऑफ फर्स्ट पॉइंट ऑफ केयर बन गया है। तो आपको बिना अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आपको अपने फैमिली में डिस्कस करने में या इन सब चीज़ों में थोड़ा-सा स्टिग्मा अटैच होता है, वो नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, तो आप बिल्कुल ऑनलाइन किसी थेरेपिस्ट या किसी हेल्पलाइन नंबर या किसी कंसल्टेंट या एक्सपर्ट से बिल्कुल संपर्क में आ सकते हैं इन योर ओन प्राइवेसी और आप हेल्प यूज़ कर सकते हैं। So this is what I would recommend to people. Many things were not available in the past, but I think as things are growing, हमारे पास accessibility ज़्यादा हो रही है। और आप वहाँ पे बैठे-बैठे किसी भी पार्ट ऑफ द कंट्री में आप किसी भी डॉक्टर या किसी भी थेरेपिस्ट या किसी भी काउंसलिंग या किसी भी हेल्पलाइन को आप एक्सेस कर सकते हैं।
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering that question. And I agree. The only positive thing that I can think of COVID is that it brought the lime and light to mental health worries, issues, and seeking help that was supposed to be there years ago.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So चलो अब serious questions तो काफी हो गए हैं. अब थोड़ा मूड लाइट करते हैं. We have some easy peasy questions for you that you have to answer in minimum words. So are you
Okay.
ready, sir?
Minimum words.
Yeah.
Okay.
So keep it as so for the lack of the better word, I'd like to call them rapid fire as of now, but they're not that rapid. Moderate.
ठीक है.
Okay. So I'll start off straight with question number one, and we go down to question eight, and you have to answer them in minimum words.
Okay.
Yeah. So your favorite stand-up comedian?
Internationally, Jerry Seinfeld. In India, Vipul Goyal.
Perfect. That was quick. Your inspiration for following your heart?
I would say my father is one of them because he used to do theater and this thing. But otherwise, uh, I feel, yeah, personally, this was the only inspiration. Otherwise, I would still club this under some of the actors. Like Jim Carrey has played a role of inspiration because I like the funny nuances that he used to do.
Okay. So now's the trickier one. Your favorite book that you have authored?
Benefits of failing successfully.
That was quick. You didn't have to choose much between all your three
ये तो
choices.
किताब है, हाँ तो उसमें क्या है?
Okay. So your favorite book otherwise?
आई एम नॉट मच ऑफ अ बुक रीडर बट रॉबिन कुक की कोमा पढ़ी थी मैंने, अदरवाइज मैं सिर्फ कॉमिक्स पढ़ता हूँ, एस्ट्रिक्स एंड ऑब्लिक्स।
Oh, I thought you would say Champak.
चंपक नहीं, हाँ चंपक, आई लाइक एस्ट्रिक्स एंड ऑब्लिक्स का ह्यूमर।
Okay, so if I would have to ask you, what would be the title of your autobiography?
Starting troubles, मैंने वो खुद ही that's my web series that's based on me, so वो तो already हो गया है.
Oh, chalo, I'll see that one now, the web series, hopefully. And then, yeah. Next question. Who is your biggest critique and fan in your family?
My wife.
Both critique and fan?
No, critic only. Fan
Who's
is
your
my
biggest
son.
fan?
My
That's
son is
wonderful.
my fan. Yeah, he's about 4 years old, but मैं कुछ भी करता हूँ, he likes it. So that's
That's awesome. We all like you and what our fathers do generally also. But I'm sure he's a true fan.
yes, really.
Yes,
Religiously strong fan.
religious, strong fan. Yeah. What's the funniest thing your patient has asked you?
Uh, like once one patient had just very jovially told me that, sir, if the surgery doesn't work, तो ये जो खर्चा किया है, उसके रिटर्न में आप मुझे जोक सुना दोगे? मैंने बोला हाँ, ठीक है. So ताकि पैसा वसूल हो. Yeah.
That's a funny one. That's actually a funny one.
It was a true incident actually.
Okay,
One
last,
actually said that. Yeah.
the person is like, he's such a good fan also. He himself is a fan, I tell you.
No, he was more Marwadi. He's like उसको मुझे अपने जो पैसे हैं वसूल
पैसे
कैसे
बता
करने हैं? हाँ हाँ
पैसे वसूलने हैं.
हाँ.
Okay. So last but not the least, how does it feel to be the coronavirus?
Yeah, so again, empathy helps, and being the coronavirus, thinking like the coronavirus, talking like the coronavirus helps you understand the virus. But I think I use that to be able to bring knowledge out, because technically, for a doctor, it's very hard to make fun of a disease, and you don't want to cross certain lines. But if you're playing the virus, and that's where the theater empathy comes, you are a little more acceptable to say things that you otherwise would not say. Like कि मैं फैल रहा हूँ, मैं इंडिया टूर कर रहा हूँ, so that's a take on the virus spreading, which is scary. But because the virus is saying it like a funny evil character, people accept it. So I think that was a good thing I tried, and I could try it because I've done theater and I've done comedy. So I could empathize beforehand. What would people accept this kind of information in, and brought it out.
Yeah, I think it was a very wonderful idea to put something like coronavirus, taken a toll on people's mental health, into such a funny way, but yet informative. So people know, when you go out, you have to put a mask and everything.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. So I think that was it. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for joining us today in Bate Unfiltered.
absolutely. No, I loved having this conversation, and thank you for all these lovely questions that you asked. And I hope everyone finds this conversation useful. And if they need any other further questions or information from me, I've made this innovative visiting card where they can just take a screenshot, and you have my number, email address, Twitter handles, and website for any further questions and follow up.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Reddy. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. See you again in Bate Unfiltered. It is going to be a monthly affair with new faces, new conversations, and new horizons to explore. Stay tuned with us and follow Mind Specialists on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more such inspiring content. Thank you.